Hey everybody, how's it going? This is my Cornucopia of Horror number 5. I think number 5. This is The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. Okay, this was a pretty damn good book. And yeah, we're doing books and movies because I think I mentioned in one of my earlier videos, I'm not finding a lot of good horror on streaming. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of great horror classics I could be watching, but I've just been throwing books in there. I was going to show you the cover of this book on my Kindle, but I don't have it pulled up. Um, so this was a great book. Um, what's it basically about? It's basically about these four dudes, often refer to themselves as dudes, four Native American guys, who one night they go out hunting on the elders' sacred sort of reservation, an area you're not supposed to go hunting. And they basically kill a shitload of deer, or elk rather. And they kind of, it's like they didn't really need to do that. They weren't supposed to be there. And they're kind of the rules that we're going to use every piece of this, and the one elk that is killed and dismembered on the spot is pregnant. It just is not a good, like, these guys are not, they're kind of shady, is the feeling you get. And then essentially, this elk comes back as a sort of demon elk woman, a woman with an elk head, sometimes as another person. It's very confusing as to who is always the elk woman. And you basically got yourselves a slasher on your hands. The characters are getting picked off one by one, and it kind of reads like a slasher novel. Now, the thing with this book is that Jones is a really literary style writer, okay? This is not a pulpy book at all. And I have seen a lot of people say they couldn't finish this because this book, when it came out, was very popular. It was being promoted everywhere. So I'm sure a lot of people were like, oh, that looks cool. I'll read it. And it might, I mean, I'm suspecting that it either was people who don't read like heavy, kind of weighty books like this or don't really read much and just thought it was going to be a fun kind of slasher. Now, I know I just described it as a slasher, but that's if I were to take the overarching story and explain it to you. It would read like a slasher. But as is the case, in my opinion, in these kind of literary novels, a lot of the times the plot is like secondary. The plot almost isn't important. Normally, these books are about the characters and the themes and the things that are going on. And a lot of these styles of books often to me read like vignettes, like they're just, there is a plot there, there's something keeping things moving sometimes. Um, but it really is just like scenes that you're watching. um, so I should say I understand why people didn't like this, and I would caution you if you're someone that I don't want to like say like not ready for the big time, right? Like not ready to read these real novels. I don't mean it like that. I just mean this literary kind of writing is not the easiest thing to read. It can be very rewarding, but if you want like a quick and dirty slasher style novel, this is not that. This is not that kind of book. This is a heavy book. It deals with heavy subject matter, and it's hard to read at times. Now I didn't necessarily find the flow of the book difficult to read because, again, like I just read a lot of stuff like this, so I'm used to like non-linear stories and shit not always making sense. Like sometimes a lot of these books are just weird scenes. Sometimes they're explained later. A lot of times you're just told things without context, as most stories would kind of move things along and let you know. This book doesn't often give you context to what's happening. It's like you have to catch up to what's happening in the scene. Now I like that and I'm used to it, but what I'm really getting is like Stephen Graham Jones, like his prose, his writing style is very unique. Now, I liked it, but I think people will struggle with it and did struggle with it as I saw. He has this style of speaking, writing, I should say, where it I don't know how to explain it, but I did not listen to the audiobook of this, but it feels like he's telling it to you. Like he uses a lot of it's hard to explain. You just have to read it. It just reads like he's telling this to you rather than acting as a narrator. Um, the way that he writes narration sections that aren't dialogue almost read like somebody's speaking that in the book. It's an odd writing style, but I kind of like it. And he does jump around a lot. Like you'll get invested in a character and something will happen to them and we're on to the next thing. And it's like he'll spend like pages on this character and then boom, like in a sentence or a paragraph, things change. So I did see people say like they would have to reread parts of this book, and I have to agree. There were a couple spots where I was just like, "Wait, whoa, what happened?" And I read it, and I'm like, "Oh." Sometimes it made sense, and sometimes it didn't. But again, I like that stuff. I watch movies kind of like this. Like I like art house kind of movies. I don't know if I'd describe this as like an art house book. It wasn't like that experimental, but I think you know what I mean. I'm just used to that kind of thing. But his writing style was kind of unique. And I liked it. And so I'm looking forward to reading more of his books. It was a great book. It was just very well written. And like I was saying with, I'm thinking of Ending Things. I didn't love that book, but I really did like it. And it's just so refreshing to see horror done in this style and a non-traditional, non-standard vanilla kind of style. It's really cool to see. And this book was definitely better written than that one. But I do think that do I recommend this? Yes. If you like to read, I totally recommend it. It was very well written. It can get graphic at times. It can be a little hard to read, but it's not all the time. Like this isn't a splatterpunk novel or anything like that. And I do have to say that was one thing I did like about the book, even though it was clearly more about the themes, interesting stuff in here about Native American culture and stuff, and the overall characters who were very well written. He still gave us that slasher thing. Like I said in the beginning, kind of coming back to that. It's like I know that he does really like slasher movies and horror. So it's like he finally wrote the slasher he always wanted to, but he did it in his style, which I just kind of thought that was I could kind of tell that's what he was going for. And it's very smartly written. There's just a lot of cool literary shit in here that I just found really neat. Um, do I recommend it? Yeah, I definitely do. But I gave it like 4 out of 5 stars because at times, as much as I like that meandering sense of plot sometimes, because the bulk of the actual action is all related to this horror kind of plot, when it doesn't, it's always changing. And I get like that's the point of the book, but because it's constantly changing and not much really becomes of it, I don't want to spoil too much, but not much. I don't know, like the plot doesn't have this magnificent, grandiose sort of epic thing going on here. It is cool, but times I was just like, I wish this was a little more standard, and that's not, take that as you will, like I don't want this to devolve into a standard slasher because it feels much bigger than that. But at times I was hoping for just a little more plot. Sometimes it was really dry, I guess I should say. It was often interesting and often exciting and kept me reading. But yes, coupled with his writing style, which was certainly confusing at certain points. I wouldn't say like the whole book, but there were definitely some sections that I just wasn't quite getting. Mixed with the fact that it didn't always, like I said, just dry. It didn't always go as quick as I wanted. That's why I took a point off. I feel like it could have been done better, but it was really good. I still recommend it. But I can see people not liking this. This is like, if this were to be made into a movie, it'd be like I don't even know who a good director for this book would be. Like I'm trying to think of horror, but what comes to mind because it's not freaky out there. Like it's not like Charlie Kaufman. It's maybe not. I don't know Paul Thomas Anderson probably, but he doesn't do horror really. Maybe like Darren Aronofsky, that kind of style. I think that he or I don't know, that kind of thing. But I could see that this is the kind of book where if it were to be made into a movie in the wrong hands, it would devolve into a standard slasher. That's the best way I could describe the whole thing. It could easily end up being a slasher, but it's much bigger than that. So I liked it. I thought it was great, and I didn't finish it, and I wasn't like, oh my god, like some books you read and you just have to put it down and like take a bath or something, and or it just sticks with you and you like can't read anything else or you're like depressed it's over. I didn't get that from this book. I'm still thinking about it. It was a great read, but I'm not like, oh my god, I can't stop thinking about it. It was great. I enjoyed it, but I'm on to the next book. So that's that. If you read it, let me know. If you enjoyed it, if you didn't like it, why? Tell me why. And yeah, I'll be back at you with whatever's next. I think Halloween Kills is coming up soon, or Halloween Ends. I'm getting kind of worried about that one, but we'll see. All right, peace out.